Hello everybody, this is the Wikstrand 1973. It was a fantastic year for music because of this reason, this reason, this reason, this reason, and this reason. If you are going to, do some kind of a movie about the time period, but does not want to make a biopic about one of the bands that were active during that year, what do? Well, you create a fictional band, in this case the band Stillwater, that we'll get to follow in this movie. Almost Famous, when it came out in the year 2000, was one of these movies that absolutely blew everybody away, and the critics were trampling down each other in order to be the first one to tell Cameron Crowe that he was a genius and wanted to give him the best blowjob in the history of sucking up to anybody. Whenever this happens, I usually get a little bit, I'm not sure I'm going to like this movie. I saw this movie a couple of years after the hype had died down, which I usually do, and I thought that it had a lot of problems, which we are going to get to. It is in no means a bad film, but like all Cameron Crowe movies, they feel like they are overlong masturbatorial excesses in drama comedies that has too much drama, too little comedy, surrounding a really good sequence that everybody remembers, and everybody, tells themselves afterward that this movie was good and it was important and that it was big art. I say that this was a big fart. But let's find out what was actually good about this movie, and let's find out what was bad about this movie. This is Almost Famous. It is almost a good movie also. Is a teenager living in California, and the year is 1973, as I said, and he really loves rock music to the chagrin of his mother, who hates rock music and is a very strict and very conservative woman who has already sort of driven away his sister, played by a very young Zooey Deschanel, who says that her mother wants to raise her into a no person in a yes world. I'm not entirely sure what that means, but I kind of get where Zooey comes from. And so it's only, him and his mother. But he loves rock music. But Rolling Stones gives him the opportunity to go to a concert with Black Sabbath, which he of course jumps to, sure I would too. But it is not Black Sabbath that grabs his attention. It is actually the opening act, the fictional band Stillwater, that does it. And after a couple of interactions with them, Rolling Stones sends him alongside the band to do an interview and to report on what life is on the road for a small hard-working band in 1973. So that's what we get. So he tags along with Stillwater and gets to know the band and gets to befriend the groupies, I mean the Band-Aids, and gets to experience everything that is rock and roll. And this is essentially what our movie is. And you're thinking to yourself, this is a US tour of a fictional band that runs into different kinds of transport troubles, technical problems, managerial problems, and infightings. Where have I ever heard that before? Yes, that's right, Spinal Tap. The problem this movie has for me is mostly that this movie sort of tried to be Spinal Tap, but tried to add drama to the whole thing. The problem is that I love Spinal Tap, and Spinal Tap was an all-out comedy. It was not meant to be taken seriously in any way. Somehow I got invested into the fake band of Spinal Tap more than I did for the fictional band of Stillwater. Maybe it was the presentation of them, maybe it was how deliberately fantastic Spinal Tap is, maybe it is just the fact that I like Spinal Tap as musicians more than I like Stillwater. There are sequences in this movie that is funny. There are sequences that is hilarious. I'm a Golden God is an iconic sequence. The thing on the plane is really funny. But apart from that, everything else feels like a lesser version of Spinal Tap. And I don't really care too much about William's journey, this coming of age story that I think Cameron Crowe is trying to do. It wasn't bad. It's well shot, it's well executed, the script is fine, but I couldn't help noticing that I just didn't care. And I also didn't understand why the band were dodging the interview all the time. They're being interviewed by Rolling Stones magazine, for Christ's sake. Where's your integrity? Or maybe you have too much of it, I don't know. The thing is that this movie just went on and on and on. Spinal Tap is a very short movie and knew how to, compress a very short story into a short movie. This took a very short story but dragged it out to over 2 hours. 2 hours and 2 minutes. May not seem like a lot of minutes, but oh boy it is. I was kind of fascinated to see where this one was going, but when the ending came and they went with a downer ending and a cop-out at the same time, I didn't know you could do that. I said, fuck it. Cameron Crowe has done another boring ass movie. But to be fair to Mr. Crowe, I actually think this just might be his best movie or least bad movie. Jerry Maguire was just too long and would not fucking end, and Aloha was really boring. This one was sort of boring but had at least an interesting, period in time where it took place and had characters that was at least a little bit more fascinating and intriguing than Jerry Maguire's attempts to remain as a sport agent or whatever it was. It was not very good. Almost Famous is a classical early 2000s overrated movie which, everybody praises and everybody looks at today with rose-tinted nostalgia glasses, I guess. But apart from some of the iconic sequences and a bunch of pretty good actors, I didn't care for any of this, and especially not Kate Hudson. Kate Hudson is one of the most overrated actresses of all time, but I don't know, Billy Crudup was okay as, the band leader. This movie could have probably worked better as an all-out comedy. They could have easily done that without losing the serious undertone that this movie has. But the thing is that the serious undertone, but we were not that invested in the story that they were presenting to us. It was just a movie that was there and then it wasn't anymore. I liked the soundtrack. Soundtrack was much better than the rest of the movie, but Almost Famous is one of these overrated movies that somehow has maintained a sort of classic. Even though it's rarely talked about, it still feels like people are holding this to a very high standard, and I cannot understand why. This is the type of movie I feel Wes Anderson could have done, and he could have turned it into an absolute monster classic. In fact, now that I said it, I want that more than anything else. Do it, Wes Anderson! Give us a remake of Almost Famous! Almost Famous is not a bad movie. I know what the movie attempts to do, but it just failed to do it, in my opinion. I gave this movie 42 points. This movie could have been really enjoyable, but it is not funny enough, the drama isn't good enough, and there are too many sequences that I felt could have been cut, and it wouldn't have affected the movie at all. I'm probably wrong about this, but that is how I feel essentially. So I'll see you next time for, well, so-and-so reviewing, well, such and such. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much.